Um, what if the concept of the senior citizen is actually, like, destroying our society?
I mean, that is a massive claim to make right out of the gate.
Right. But think about it. We, slap a label on you at a certain age. We hand you a discount card and essentially assume your active foundational contribution to the world is just over.
Yeah, we've extended human lifespans by decades.
But we haven't updated our cultural software. We haven't given those extra years any profound utility. So today, we are unpacking a radical social blueprint that wants to abolish retirement entirely.
It is a genuinely paradigm-shifting concept. Because we're looking at an argument that suggests our entire approach to aging is not just flawed, but actively causing our most severe cultural crises.
Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this. Our focal point today is a highly specific framework laid out in a lecture. This was delivered in Hosilong, South Korea on May 9th, 2026.
Right.
And the mission for you today is to explore a roadmap that completely eliminates the passive, retired demographic. Instead, it proposes rigorously training our older population to become true elders.
And the path to get there is, well, it's incredibly unconventional.
It's wild. I mean, it involves martial arts, actively rejecting government funding, and a strategy to cure the root cause of modern loneliness.
Yeah. The overarching premise hinges on fundamentally restructuring the social contract. The source essentially argues that without a specific active class of true elders, a society simply stalls out.
Right. It hits a ceiling.
Exactly. A ceiling it cannot break through, regardless of how much technological or economic progress it makes.
So before we get into the actual logistics of how you would build these new communities, we need to define the terminology.
Because the words really matter here.
Yeah, there's a massive distinction being made in the text between an older person, a senior, and a true elder. In Korean, the distinctions between no-in, which is just an older person, and iyo-ryeon, an elder.
Right, and it all comes down to a natural social order. The framework states that elders are meant to speak and juniors are meant to listen.
Which, I have to pause and play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Because that phrase instantly triggers the relatable fear of the preachy older relative.
Oh, absolutely.
You know the dynamic. You're at a family gathering, and someone older corners you to lecture you about how things used to be. And it's not because it helps you. It's because they just like to feel authoritative.
Right, the ego trip.
Yeah. So if we create a whole class of people whose job is just to speak, how does this framework prevent them from just lecturing the youth to death?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the text identifies that exact trap. The framework views becoming an elder as a rigorous, demanding discipline.
Okay.
It is not an automatic right granted by surviving a certain number of decades. You don't just get to talk because you have gray hair.
Thank goodness for that.
All right. To ensure this, an elder must undergo an intensive social education. And there is a strict rule about what they are allowed to say.
The honored words, right?
Yes. An elder must speak what is translated as honored words or wisdom. The term used is malseum.
Malseum, okay.
If someone speaks just to inject their own agenda or complain, it's categorized as just regular words, or mal.
So what does that social education actually look like in practice?
It means they have to actively listen to teachings and verify what the community actually needs before they ever open their mouths.
Bro.
Yeah, it requires creating actual recipes for a living. Think about the difference between someone who calls themselves a mentor just to boss you around
The worst.
versus a true mentor who carefully curates their advice. They observe your specific situation and offer only what you actually need to hear to overcome an obstacle. True wisdom is defined by speaking purely for the benefit of society, never for the speaker's ego.
So it's an earned authority. But I mean, building that level of psychological restraint, the ability to hold back your own ego and only offer curated wisdom, that requires immense stamina.
It does. Which leads us directly to the physical prerequisite of this framework.
Yes. And here's where it gets really interesting for you listening, because this completely caught me off guard. The blueprint explicitly states that to be able to speak this high-level wisdom, these elders cannot just be sitting in armchairs reading philosophy.
Right. They are specifically tasked with practicing taekwondo and a highly specific type of breath work called Danjin breathing.
Which sounds completely unrelated at first. Like I compare it to an Olympic athlete in training. But instead of training their body to run a marathon, they are doing martial arts strictly to build the stamina to dispense high-quality wisdom.
The intent behind this is fascinating because it totally bridges the gap between Western and Eastern philosophies of mind and body.
How so?
Well, in many modern societies, we treat wisdom as something that just lives in the brain, right? Totally separate from the physical vessel. But this argument repurposes the martial arts spirit.
But they aren't fighting.
No, the goal isn't combat. They aren't training to fight in a ring. They are training to circulate energy or gyun.
I want to dig into the actual mechanics of that. Because initially, telling a 70-year-old to do martial arts so they can give better advice sounds like a non sequitur.
It does sound strange on paper.
Yeah. So how does the physical breath work actually translate into better societal wisdom?
Think about the physiological state of giving advice. When a person is stressed or physically stagnant or in pain, their nervous system is often hovering in a state of fight or flight.
Right, their breathing is shallow.
Exactly. And in that physiological state, the ego flares up, the amygdala is active, and it is incredibly difficult to be objective. Danjin breathing focuses on deep lower abdomen respiration.
Oh, so it forces the physical body into a parasympathetic state.
Precisely. You literally cannot produce the necessary calm words of wisdom if your physical baseline is agitated. The martial arts element of Taekwondo builds the physical resilience to sit with uncomfortable truths.
Wow, so it proves that an elder's physical vitality is directly and intimately linked to society's vitality.
Yes, if the elder's energy is stagnant, their wisdom will be stagnant.
It paints such a vivid picture. Instead of an aging population slowly fading into the background playing bingo, you have this energized, physically disciplined demographic.
They're dialing in their breath work specifically so their voice carries weight when they try to help you navigate your life.
It is a complete inversion of the frail, passive stereotype.
The mind, the spirit, and the voice are treated as physical instruments that must be tuned.
But tuning those instruments requires resources. I mean, if these individuals are spending their time practicing Taekwondo, doing breath work, and studying societal principles, they aren't participating in the traditional workforce.
That's a very practical point.
Right. So what exactly are they studying? And more importantly, who is underwriting this whole movement?
Well, the curriculum they are tasked with studying is referred to as Jungbub. That translates to right dharma, or true law and principles.
Okay.
These are foundational truths about how human relationships and society should operate. But their job isn't just to memorize them. They act as a massive, decentralized quality control mechanism.
Oh, so they are actively vetting the philosophy.
Yes, the process dictates that elders must review these teachings for 15 to 30 days. They debate them, analyze them, and check to see if they are actually valid and applicable for the modern world before they pass them on.
Okay, let's talk about the funding, because this is where the blueprint takes a massive, highly controversial swing.
It certainly does.
Yeah. It states that if these elders need support, and the text uses a very grounded example, like an elder needing hearing aids so they can properly listen and verify teachings, they must absolutely never accept government support, period.
The stance on this is uncompromising.
Right.
The source warns that government funding inevitably brings government interference and subjugation.
I have a really hard time accepting the practicality of this. Rejecting government aid for an aging population seems incredibly risky.
It's definitely a radical departure from the norm.
We are talking about walking away from guaranteed resources. State pensions, healthcare infrastructure that took decades to build. What happens to the elder who literally relies on that safety net to survive? You're saying they should just refuse it on principle.
Well, this raises an important question about autonomy. The framework addresses this by questioning the ultimate cost of that guaranteed safety net. It argues that he who pays the piper calls the tune.
So it's about control.
Exactly. If you are financially dependent on the state, you are a dependent, not a guide. The overarching philosophy here is that true moral authority requires absolute independence.
Because they're supposed to lead the government.
Right. Elders are meant to be the moral compass that shapes policy. That is structurally impossible if they are terrified of having their state funding cut.
But if they reject the state, they still need to buy the hearing aids. Where is the money coming from, if not from taxes?
The solution proposed is a reliance on what they term social parents, Saho Bumodul, and private foundations.
So private money.
Yes, the idea is to build grassroots, community-level support. When an elder association forms, it must prove its worth to these private groups.
I'm still skeptical. What happens if the private foundation dries up, or they just decide not to fund them anymore?
According to the source, that vulnerability is actually the feature, not the bug.
Wait, really?
Yeah. By relying on private, voluntary funding, the elders are forced to maintain the absolute purity of their mission. They have to prove their value to society through actual, observable results.
Oh,
If they stop producing societal value, the funding stops. It forces them to remain vital. Government funding, on the other hand, often lacks this quality control. It just funds demographics based on age brackets, regardless of their output.
okay, I see how that creates a meritocracy of wisdom. It's a total financial rebellion, but a quiet one. Which brings us to the mechanics of implementation.
This is where the roadmap gets very specific.
Right, because if you have a society where millions of people are already deeply entrenched in the traditional government-funded senior citizen system, how do you actually replace it with this radical new model?
You don't do it through legislation, and you don't do it through a massive, aggressive protest. The text advocates for a highly pragmatic Trojan horse strategy.
The Trojan horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
You start incredibly small. Just 10 people.
Just 10 people to change a national infrastructure.
Exactly. You gather 10 dedicated individuals and legally incorporate a single elder association, or Eo Rianho. The imagery used in the lecture is planting a seed. When the first sprouts appear, you handle the delicate leaves with extreme care.
You don't try to force a massive tree to grow overnight.
No, you let it take root.
So what does this all mean? If we look at this through a modern business lens, it is essentially a disruptive startup model.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, think about how major tech disruptions happen. You don't try to out-lobby a legacy corporation. You just build a hyper-functional 10-person prototype that makes the old model look obsolete.
That is a perfect analogy. The immediate goal of this 10-person group is simply to build a 6-month track record.
6 months.
Just 6 months of dialing in the Taekwondo, regulating their nervous systems through breath work, verifying the right dharma, and creating a noticeable, undeniable improvement in their own health and their community contribution.
And once they have that 6-month proof of concept, what then?
They take that documented progress, their improved health metrics, and their curated wisdom, and they present this sample back to the foundations and the social parents.
Creating a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. Better results secure more private funding, which allows them to expand and produce even better results.
But the brilliant part of the strategy is how they handle the legacy system, right?
Yes, the existing senior citizens associations.
Yeah. You take this successful, thriving sample of 10 people, and you show it to those traditional groups.
No.
The prediction is that the contrast will be so stark, the new elders will have so much vitality and societal purpose, that the traditional groups will just voluntarily surrender their old ways.
It's a voluntary conversion. The traditional seniors will look at these energized elders and say, "We want what you have."
It shifts the culture from the bottom up.
Right? By quietly creating an irresistible alternative, they disrupt the senior citizen infrastructure from the inside without ever having to fight the government.
It is incredibly clever. But we need to address the ultimate why. We've explored the what, the how, the breath work, and the funding.
The mechanics of it all.
Yeah. But why is this transformation so urgent for your society? Why can't we just leave the aging population to enjoy their traditional retirement?
The framework makes a rather stark diagnosis of the current state of modern society. It argues that the country has reached about 70% of its growth potential, and it is now completely fundamentally stalled.
Let's explore that 70% ceiling. What does hitting that limit actually look like in our day-to-day lives? Because economically and technologically, things are still moving.
Well, it looks like a society with high GDP and soaring infrastructure, but simultaneously skyrocketing rates of depression, burnout, and social isolation.
The invisible metrics.
Exactly. We have built the roads, we have established the tech sectors, we have the buildings, but culturally, we are stuck in a spiritual plateau.
Right.
The argument suggests that to break past that 70% mark, you need true elders to, as it poetically phrases it, pull down power from the heavens.
Meaning we need a tier of high-level moral and philosophical guidance that transcends just optimizing quarterly profits or building faster microchips.
Yes, but the text brings this abstract societal ceiling down to a visceral human level. It argues that the absence of true elders is the actual root cause of our most devastating societal plagues, profound loneliness and suicide.
And that part completely reframed my perspective. Because, when we talk about loneliness, especially for younger demographics, we usually diagnose it as a lack of peer connection.
We think someone is lonely because they don't have enough friends their own age.
Right. Or they're spending too much time on social media.
But that is lateral connection. The framework completely redefines loneliness by focusing on the vertical social contract.
Let's break that down. Why does having an elder above you cure the loneliness of the young, even if that young person is sitting alone in a room without their peers?
Imagine the imagery provided in the lecture. The elderly person who just sits around drinking soju.
Okay.
That person is occupying the top tier of the generational ladder, but they are offering no guidance. They cannot be respected. They are merely taking up space and waiting out the clock.
There's no weight or utility to their presence.
Right. And when the top of the societal structure is vacant, when there is no one above you dispensing true, verified wisdom, the youth feel completely unmoored.
Yeah, think about the existential dread so many young adults face today.
They look up the age ladder to see what their future holds, and they see people who are just as confused, checked out, or anxious as they are. That is terrifying.
That is the aha moment right there.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the last time you felt totally lost in your career or your personal life. Having 5 friends around you who are equally lost doesn't cure the panic.
Not at all.
But having one seasoned, grounded mentor walk into the room changes the entire atmosphere. It is the difference between being lost in the woods with a group of friends versus being in the woods with a seasoned guide.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, even if the environment is still scary, knowing the guide is there cures the existential panic.
Having an elder provides a vertical connection. It provides a roof. It gives the younger generation a sense of security, a feeling that someone wiser has scouted the path ahead and is watching out for the trajectory of the whole group.
And it solves the crisis for the older generation simultaneously. The framework states that if there are elders actively working for their descendants, those elders have an undeniable reason to live.
They would never wake up and ask, what is the point of my life?
Exactly.
Mm.
Suicide and profound depression, in this model, stem from a lack of utility. Restoring the elder role restores vital purpose to every single demographic at the exact same time.
The elders get a reason to optimize their health and discipline, and the youth get the compass they're desperately missing.
It really is a masterstroke of societal engineering. We started this deep dive talking about the often depressing, passive landscape of aging, but this blueprint from Hwasong flips the narrative completely.
It demands that our final chapters be our most rigorous, our most physically disciplined, and our most impactful.
It is a demanding framework, certainly. I mean, asking people to reject state comfort and engage in intense physical and social education is no small feat.
But it is an undeniably hopeful vision for what human longevity can actually achieve.
We have journeyed from using Danjen breathwork to gather physical energy, to fiercely guarding moral independence by rejecting government handouts, to building a quiet, Trojan horse startup model that disrupts legacy senior centers from the inside out.
And it all serves one incredible purpose: to cure the profound existential loneliness that happens when a society lacks a true north.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over today. Regardless of your current age, whether you're 25, 45, or 75, if you were to start training to become a true elder for your community today, what specific recipe of physical preparation and mental study would you need to adopt right now? What do you need to change so that when you finally speak, you are offering true wisdom and not just words? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we will catch you next time.